Hey everyone, Exhibition Cadet Savisha here again, and the topic is the same, Flight PK8303's final report. Today I'm going to talk about the aspects of how this accident happened and what was the main factor behind that. As in the thumbnail you can see, just 2 minutes. That's what it took. What's the story behind that? So initially I would tell you one of my own incidents which happened to me when I was serving in Pakistan Air Force in 1995, and how that incident is related to this incident, and then how the time factor matters. So soon there would be a lot of real experts. Now, by real experts, I mean the ones who are famous on YouTube. They would come out and take this report and start giving their opinions, but all their opinion would be based on what's written on the report. And this report is written in a Pakistani society, so one has to see the pressures on the person who actually compiled this report and made it public. It took 4 years to have this report published. And I read the whole report yesterday. My first video was on the first 30 pages where they showed everything, how this happened, the timeline and everything. So when I would say something, that would be based on the pressures on the publisher, on the compiler of this report as well. So those things would be induced. And then I would come up with my final conclusion, and then you decide, compared with my own experience. So first thing is my own experience. So that was late fall of 1995. I was on T-37s, A's and B's, and I was on the area solo. I started my general flying at that time. So I guess that was after my midterm test, which is MTT, which is done after 35 hours on twin engine jet T-37. Before that, I've flown with shock for about 50 hours and a K-8 for about 6 hours. My nose was broken, I couldn't continue. I didn't do the solo. We were the first test pilots on K-8s. And after that, we fly the T-37, A's and B's. We have both. We don't have C's and D's. They were enrolled in Pakistan Air Force since 1968, I think. So that was 1995, so already 27, 28 years old aircrafts, and we were under sanctions, so we were not allowed to fly the ones which were not under our lease, which were not ours. So American T-37s were grounded. But that was a day when there were 15 aircrafts in the air. The weather was kind of cloudy, not fully fit for solo, but it was on the edge, and our course was short course, so they had to complete their flying within 1.5 years. And it's a huge course. We were 40 pilots, cadets who reported in basic flying training. So 40 had to complete 185 hours in 1 year. So imagine that how many sorties we needed to fly. So I used to fly 3 sorties a day even on a twin jet engine. Each sortie was about, we call it sortie, each mission was about 1 hour and 5 to 10 minutes long. So imagine without G suit, 3 hours a day on a jet airplane. So that was my solo, and I went on my area solo doing my maneuvers. I love the L1 rolls, and once I completed, almost on when I was going to complete that one, boom, the warning light in my cockpit turned on, and that was low fuel on the left fuel tank. It has 2 fuel tanks on each wing, T-37. So the left fuel tank warning light was on there. It was getting low, and then I checked the difference. The difference was huge. Now I don't remember the exact figure, but one was showing 60 something and one was showing 20 something. So the difference between them was plus 40, which was a huge difference, because it creates a yaw and stuff like that. And I went on solo. So the first step, what I did, I was at about 25,000 feet. I right away called the tower for joining, because that's the joining procedure. You call the tower, and tower tells you to convert to ATC. Your frequency, that's where you have to keep your ears on. So normally when you are flying in your area, there are 20 areas, so once you're flying in your area, you have your own frequency, and the ATC knows if to contact you, what frequency is going to turn over and call you, and so that they don't disturb. Otherwise, once you're flying, you're concentrating on your flying, and then many noises come in, calls from other aircraft. So that's why they put you on your own frequency. So every area has its own frequency. We switch to that one, we operate, and before joining, before going back to the runway, we switch to sometimes to the tower, sometimes to the ATC directly, and tell them that, okay, we're going to be on it. So we switched to tower, and I sent the first call, and I said, Bluebell 349 request joining. Now, this is not a secret call sign. It changes every month. So I can say it now, but that's 30 years old. Bluebell 349, that was my call sign. Request joining. And that was a time when another aircraft also switched to Tower and called the joining request. So instead of replying me back, he said the call sign name of the other aircraft and gave it the joining instruction, which are normally that descend down to blah, 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 height, and go toward the joining point and start heading towards the first downwind. So now I waited for about 2 or 3 minutes again, checking the light. I pushed the light. It didn't. But normally, sometimes because of the short circuit or anything, the lights turn on by themselves. So what do? We punch them, and they get turned off if it's just a malfunction. But my light stayed on. That means I was really low on the fuel. It was leaking somewhere. So what I did, second time, I called for joining again. Bluebell 349 request joining, and again, someone else, because there were 15 aircrafts at that time in the air, 15 or 16. So what happened that, again, I was not considered to be given joining instructions first. So third time I did again, and this time my light started to beep, or it turned red. It turns to yellow first and then red, and something like that, because I haven't checked the T-37 manual yet. It's been 30 years ago. So what I did, I called for the third time, and again my call was kidnapped by someone else, and someone else requested joining at the same time. Now, it's not that if one RD is working and the other is not going to work. No, all the instructions, all the calls, they get in at the same time to the ATC officer. So he gave the joining to the third aircraft. Now, when I got really low and the fuel indicator was almost towards zero, that was the time when I said, now I have to switch to guard. So guard frequency is the frequency which overrides all other frequencies in that specific area. So you can hear guard frequencies even on your radio transmitters, the receivers, those home radios, those old ones. So I switched to the guard frequency and gave out my call, Bluebell 349, low on fuel, request joining ASAP. Now, that was the time when the ATC officer, he realized, holy cow, there's a solo, and it's coming down, and it's low on fuel, and it's a solo. It's a cadet. So he asked for the area for the RD silence to all other aircrafts, and asked me to switch to blah, blah, blah frequency and start coming towards the joining point. So from 24,000 feet, I started descending down to around 10,000 feet and going towards my joining point, which was, well, I won't say the name of that one because that is secret. So went to the joining point. At the joining point, you descend further down to around 5,000 feet. Then you start coming towards the first downwind, and prior to when your nose touches the runway, you get down to 3,000 feet. And once you are over the runway, you start descending to 2,000 feet, which is your downwind height. So then you complete your first downwind, and then you start to land. Seems pretty easy. But what happened to me is all of a sudden the clouds started to come in, and the whole runway was covered with clouds, low clouds, and like even below 3,000 feet, and I couldn't see the runway. So approximately when I reached over top of the runway, turned towards my first downwind, left-hand downwind, I couldn't see the runway. And all other aircrafts had landed. Only one was in the air, and I was going to go for a touch and go. I'm going to go for the full stop landing, but when I declared my emergency, I said the left fuel tank is approaching zero, and runway not visual, and that made panic on the ground. But what I want to say is that final aircraft, second last aircraft, which was going to go for full stop landing, did a touch and go, escorted me, came closer to me, and tipped the wing, and then we got established on the RT, and asked me to just follow the left. So that was my first formation flight, by the way. We haven't started formation back then. And on final approach, I landed safely, and my instructor pilot, he punished me for that. He said, once you are on solo and you have a fuel emergency, you should have switched to guard frequency the first thing, and you should have asked for the priority. You have the priority. All criteria meet. So it was declared my fault, and I was punished. Being in orbit means running around the building for unlimited time. That's Air Force. That's Pakistan Air Force for you. To make you stronger, they try to kill you, because what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Now keep that story in mind. I took already 12 minutes. Now let's get back to the PK8303. Now PK8303, if you look at the report, you will see the biodata of Captain Sajjad Gul and the first officer Usman. You will see everything about them, their flying career, their hours as being first pilots, as being captains on different aircrafts, the aircraft types, everything is given there. Their medical checkups, when did they happen, Captain Sajagul's first medical checkup happened in 1992, so I think he was almost my age. And the other one, the first officer. So what I'm saying is that every information is on the report. Whose information is not there? The ATCO and the tower control leader, team leader. You won't see their names. Only the date of births are given and their career and tenure in civil aviation authority. Why? Now, why their names are hidden? So I asked a few people and they said, oh, because in 2002 there was an incident. ATCO was blamed and a passenger's father shot him dead. Well, that happened in Russia, by the way. So that's why it's ICAO's policy that no names of the survivors are given. So I was like, what? Because you can see on my channel as well, I covered the Dallas mid-air collision from day one till the initial report came out. And the ATC officer was blamed. And even his whole family was mentioned in that one, whose son he was. His father was also an ATC officer. So he was a junior guy. You can check it on the channel if you want to see it. And prior to that one, in April 2023, another two student pilots, one was on the final mission, was going to get her commercial pilot license, and the other one was a junior pilot, student pilot, and the instructor pilot, also junior, 22 years of age, and they collided each other and died. 4 people died. Again, aviation loss. And the ATC officer was blamed, and his name was given. He was all over the newspaper. So there's no such clause that you don't mention. But here, again, as a Pakistani society, the pressure, it's not that they're going to be killed. No, it's because they are from the powerful families. As I've said in previous videos, no one wants to be an ATC officer in Pakistan, okay? So people related to the elite tell their kids, okay, go for this one because here you can get a good job, a secure job, and we'll make sure that you will get that job. So my guess cannot be wrong. ATC officer, and he was 1992, born in 1992 when I started flying, actually, and the other one 1987. So one is 20 years younger than me, and one is around 17 years younger than I am. So their names were hidden for a purpose because they were the main culprits. So now let's get back to the third phase, which I promised earlier. My story: ATC officer's name missing, the control tower leader's names missing in the final report. There's a reason for that, because they were responsible for everything that happened. So we start from the beginning, which is on the report says, oh, they were hot and high. Why? Why would they? The one captain had 17,000 flying hours. And this poor first officer, he had 1,500 flying hours on this specific aircraft as a first officer. So there's no way that he forgot this, that, blah, blah, blah. And they were not in a hurry to land. No. What has happened? That when from Lahore Airport, from the Lahore Airdrome, when they entered Karachi Airdrome, they have to contact the tower. Now again, as yesterday I said, tower and ATC are two different things. Their visuals are two different visuals. ATC officer sits in an office. Well, the tower guy sits in a tower where he can see the aircraft physically. But whenever you join the area, you first call the tower, as in my case. So they approached to the tower, told them, okay, we are switching to goodbye Lahore, switching to Karachi Airdrome. Okay, well and good. So they switch the frequency to the tower, tell them, okay, we are maintaining blah, 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 34,000 for, in their case, level, and going to enter the Karachi control tower, which is the air traffic control area soon. So it was at about 12:24 in Pakistan Standard Time, and on the report it says 8:24 Standard Time, additional time. So once they joined, they asked for the permission to join. They are connected with the tower now. So at a certain time, in a certain distance away from ATC's control area, air traffic control's control area, they switch to the other frequency on which the air traffic controller is. So they were given, this is missing from the report, they were given the instructions to switch to a frequency, and that was told to the air traffic controller as well, because there was only one aircraft coming in, the second one was in line, which was an hour away, PK, I will confirm that one, which was 6358 or 6538, I think PK 6538, another inbound to Karachi from Islamabad. So it was COVID time, that's why it was not so crowded. So the frequency given was 125.5. Now that's those who know about the bandwidths of the frequencies during the flying. Everywhere it's 4 digits. So 125.5.5, we say decimal. Now that frequency was given to the ATC officer, so he switched the knob to that frequency, and then the aircraft PK-833 switched to that knob. and they are on the same frequency. Now PK8303 got established radio-wise with the air traffic controller, and they had exchanged the words with each other. And now the aircraft is on 125.5 as instructed by the tower, and somehow the ATC changed its frequency to 126.5. Now in the report, nowhere does it mention that PK8303 had changed the frequencies, because this FDR, the flight data recorder, records everything, whatever happens in the cockpit, and they mention in the report. They mentioned in the report about the initial change of frequency to 126.5, but 125.5, but they never mentioned that it was changed back to somewhere else. So PK8303, as instructed, kept the same frequency, but the guy at the ATC, he changed to one more digit. So what happened? When they entered for the final descent, where they had to come down from 34,000 feet to 10,000 feet, they initiated the descent at about whatever the time was. I will just display when I will edit this video. And the second phase was that first they went from 34,000 feet to 10,000 feet, and the second phase was to the joining point from 10,000, they had to lose to 7,000. Now here, where you have to be concentrated, what happened? From 10,000, you have to get the clearance from the ATC for that. So probably they also called the ATC on the frequency they were given initially. And you can see it's written very clearly. Once they got established the contact again, they said, oh, please switch to 126.5 or 125.5 or blah, blah. And the ATC said, no, stay on this frequency, which he had on it. Now, what the ATC guy did, for 2 minutes, again, these two crucial minutes, for 2 minutes, they were RT blind. RT blind means they had no conversation with each other because they couldn't find each other. Now, the report says that 7 times ATC tried to contact the aircraft, and on a wrong frequency, because the frequency given to the aircraft, PK8303, was different. Initially, they had the contact on the same frequency, but this guy changed. ATC guy changed, probably on the inspection of the tower, because then tower looked at the book and said, oh no, the real frequency is this, I gave them the wrong one. So he informed the tower to switch that to the frequency they use normally, but didn't inform 8303. Now, 8303 is flying at 10,000 feet, is already in the area over the joining point, and at 10,000 feet. 2 minutes later, after attempting 5 times, and even called PKA 6538 and told them to contact. They said, and PKA 6538 also tried to contact, because PKA 6538 was on, again, the standard frequency numbers, but they gave the wrong numbers to PK 8303. So now, the ATC officer tried to contact 8303, couldn't contact. The other aircraft tried to contact, couldn't contact. Now what to do? Guard. Like the way I did. So now the ATC officer calls on the guard frequency, and that's where the PK 8303 confirms, oh, sir, strength 2. Confirm 126.5, and it says switch to 125.5. So you see where the problem happened. Between this time, 2 minutes have been passed. You can check the time for the first time when the ATC officer, and that was the time when the aircraft should have, 2 minutes prior to that one, the aircraft should have started to pitch down and maintaining 2,000 feet per minute, and start to descend down to a joining point where he has to be at 7,000 feet. They didn't do it because they can't do it. What if there's an aircraft under them? They have to have been cleared by the ATC, and ATC was lost for 2 minutes trying to find out, okay, where did this aircraft go? I can see a blip, but how to contact them? So he tried it. He would have switched to 126.5. He would have contacted them, or he would have gone to the guard directly. That's in my case. I should have, when I have these problems, I should have asked for the guard frequency right away and gave the call out. And he chose on the 8th attempt and called them on the guard. Now, what do? Now, they're already 4,000 feet above where they shouldn't be, 3,000 feet in that case. So once they established the contact, and FDR confirmed, the report confirmed, that was the time they started their initial descent. The second descent from 10,000 feet to 7,000 feet, and then slowly getting down to whatever the speed and whatever the height is. And then this chain of reaction started. Now, it's not their fault. The pilots have to, recalculate on the things, and they were confident. One had around 12,000 flying experience on the same aircraft, and the other one had 1,500 as a first officer, so they knew what they were doing. Although this whole delay of 2 minutes and 4,000 feet above the required height, initiated by the tower for giving the wrong frequencies, initiated by the ATC officer, and the report compiler knows that. And that's why their names are missing, because you can blame the dead any time of the day. But on live ones, no, don't blame them. So this was the reason why this aircraft was higher than its original, where it was supposed to be, because it was asking for the permission to descend. And once they descended down, they felt like they could do it. Even they dropped down to 6,800 feet per minute, which is, by the way, within the limitations of the aircraft, allowed. So they didn't break any laws of aviation. It was allowed to go down this fast. And they maintained the glide path, although the easiest way was just to make a round trip, go around, and make an orbit and descend down. They didn't choose that one. It's their choice. If they could land directly, they don't want it to waste time and stuff like that, getting a useless orbit for 360-degree turn. Probably, I'm thinking, I don't know what they were thinking at that time, but everything was under control until, there's another until, ATC officers, he did tell them when to take the orbit, the SABEN point, Sabin point, where you can take an orbit easily, and you won't, get yourself in trouble. But they missed that point because of this height difference initially started by the ATC officer. At 2,000 feet, the first officer, he was the flying pilot, he was already under the impression, okay, now I'm high, and these last 2,000 feet I will be overspeeding, and I'll probably overshoot the runway, so I am not gonna land, I'm gonna go around. He didn't put the power in. What he did, he got the gears up, okay? He got the gears up, got the flaps up, and he was preparing to, as on the side stick, as he was going to apply the pressure to get the aircraft up, because it takes some time for the engine to spool up or spool down. 2 seconds later, that was the time when Captain Sajjad says, I have the controls. Okay, you have the controls. And 2 seconds later, the ATC officer gives them clearance to land. PK 8303, clear to land. Now tell me, Captain Sajjad, what would he do? Oh, I got the clearance. He had no idea what kind of inputs have first officer made. Retracted the gears, flaps up. Everything's recorded on the report as well. It's shown there. And he gets it. And meanwhile, first officer was doing those things. Flying pilot was doing those things. He was busy, turning off the lights, all the emergency lights, all the warnings, all the low-level, low-terrain pull-up, blah, blah, blah. All these warnings, he was taking care of those, the captain. And first officer, he already did input. And this happened between, in 3 seconds. See? 1, 2, 3. See, he did gear up, flaps up, because they're all located on the control panel. And they didn't announce. Sometimes they don't announce that one. And when at 1,100 feet prior to touchdown, above ground level, when Captain Sajjad took the controls, he got the clearance call, clear to land. And the tower, his excuse, he says, well, he should be there observing this plane coming down, And if you see a plane coming nose down, the excuse he gave in the report that he couldn't see whether the landing gears were extended or not, because the aircraft was pitched down. And landing configuration is always like this, nose up. If aircraft is coming like this, you should be warned. There's a military base right ahead after the runway ends. Across from that one, there's a highway between, and then vessel base starts. So that's 911, remember? He should be more vigilant. This proves he was not in his room. He had no idea what was coming down. ATC officer had no idea. He said, okay, everything's under control. They're on perfect height, perfect speed, and they can land. So he gave them clearance to land, although they already started to go around. And Captain Sajjad, he had no idea. Well, he pulled the gears to down position, but the speed was above 230 knots, which is the limitation for gears to come down. Gears didn't come down. He was under the impression that they are going to come down. That's why when he applied the brakes, when it touched down without the gears, he applied full brakes for 14 seconds, and even the reverse thrust was on. So, but that was not enough, because the plane was skidding, and that was the time when the first officer said, "Take off, sir. Take off," means go around, and they initiated the overrun, but every damage was done. So those 2 minutes. Now, please, in the comment section, you tell me if I'm thinking right. Those 2 minutes make the difference, nothing else. Every single second when you're flying is important. And it's a split-second decision which can decide the fate, in this case, 98 people.